To the young scientist at the University of the Philippines, my alma mater, who unfriended me on Facebook, I address this. That was written by Mario V. Melendez on January 27th, 2015. This is part 1. Here goes. Please take a moment to rededicate yourself to the scientific method. Your commitment to the unvarnished data and the unembellished facts should be uncompromising, stubborn, and even overzealous, no matter how inconvenient and no matter how unpopular. To ignore, falsify, or cherry-pick them to support a preconceived conclusion for political expediency, as some supposedly respectable scientists did in support of global warming, is an unforgivable betrayal of what should be your one and only jealous mistress. Science is science, politics is politics, and for the serious truth-seeker, never the twain shall meet, especially so when the twain also collides with big business. This brings me to Al Gore. The former US Vice President, the self-appointed high priest of global warming and consequently Nobel Peace Prize laureate, deserves a special mention here, so here goes. The only thing that politician/businessman deserves to be acknowledged for is his cynical ability to make an obscene amount of money peddling bogus science. So let this be also an appeal to the Ig Nobel Prize to give this wannabe scientist their satirical recognition for notoriety in the field of climate science. That, I submit, is what he actually deserves, instead of a genuine Nobel Peace Prize. Because of this stupid choice, that medallion has irreparably lost its luster. Making matters worse, Mr. Gore recently put his hypocrisy on full public display when he chose to sell his cable network Current TV for petrodollars, $500 million, to Qatar, the very producer and profiteer of the petroleum he has been ranting against as the culprit behind global warming. Not only does that show his lack of principles, but also his lack of patriotism. For the proverbial 30 pieces of silver, he sold his Current TV to be turned into Al Jazeera, the very mouthpiece of radical elements bent on the destruction of a country of which he was once vice president and almost became president himself. That's not an issue alien to this topic, for it goes into the very character of the man, as appallingly lacking in principles and personal integrity, character traits that are indispensable of a serious truth-seeker on any given issue, if it is to be credible. That Mr. Gore is now the chosen guru of the global warming zealots only further compromises their bona fides for a serious and dispassionate scientific debate on the matter. I'm no rocket scientist myself, far from it, but it doesn't take one to be able to distinguish what's settled science from what's not. That the Earth is round is settled science, thanks to Eratosthenes, and that it's not the centre of the solar system is settled science, thanks to Copernicus. But that it's warming because of human activity is not yet anyway. For if it were, why all the conflicting scientific data, and hence the need to cherry-pick them? So it might be a little premature to add Al's name to that august pantheon of the ages that includes Eratosthenes, Copernicus, Darwin, Newton, Einstein, and others who have crossed the great chasm between scientific theory and settled science. I'm not saying categorically that global warming isn't real. I'm only saying that at this time global warming is at best just a scientific theory. And as scientific theories go, they're only good until they're disproven by conflicting data, in which case they have to be revised or discarded altogether, even if it means losing the millions of dollars in research grants from vested political and business interests that will only accept a particular preconceived outcome. Neither should science be left to scientific consensus, since that never ended well in the past. Just ask Einstein. Science should never be up for sale to the highest bidder either, and neither should it ever be held hostage by political ideology. Indeed, Whenever your dogma or your version of the truth is challenged in a calm and sober academic debate, try and exhibit the graciousness and the intellectual maturity to go head-to-head in a robust exchange of ideas, if you care to, or excuse yourself politely if you don't. Regarding it as seemingly a personal attack is remarkably immature, and unfriending me on Facebook, where we were duking it out in a debate, is outright censorship. And censorship is never the way for those with a genuine ability for critical thinking, and censorship has absolutely no place in any debate. Now, on a seemingly unrelated matter you innocuously brought up, that is capitalism. Oh, please, let's not kid ourselves. There's nothing unrelated about global warming and capitalism, and you know it. Pro-global warming and anti-capitalism might as well be Siamese twins conjoined at the heart and at the brain. With the lone exception of Mr. Gore, who hasn't seen a profit he didn't like, no matter how obscene, it's no coincidence that the fiercest defenders of global warming are also the fiercest opponents of capitalism. Let's get real here. Communism and socialism are discredited economic systems, so their sour-graping disciples are now putting their last hopes on the global warming boogeyman to spook the winning economic system. They still very much detest capitalism. Václav Klaus, former president of Czechoslovakia, which was formerly a communist country, nailed it when he said that the much ballyhooed doom and gloom spectre of global warming is nothing but a tactic by the extreme left to take another bite at the apple and go mano a mano against capitalism yet again. In other words, for tactical reasons, the usual suspects simply changed colours from red to green, not giving a damn whether global warming is real or not. This is why they conveniently switch rhetorics from global warming to climate change every time winter temperatures plunge to record lows. If there's record drought, it's global warming. If there's record flooding, it's climate change. If temperatures soar in record numbers, it's global warming. If snow drops to record levels, it's climate change. They can't lose. In fact, now they blame global warming/climate change for anything and everything. Earthquakes, tsunamis, typhoons, volcanic eruptions, wildfires, tornadoes, name it. Lately, they're even blaming it for the rise of ISIL. I kid you not, Google it. Talk about overkill. Never mind that earthquakes, tsunamis, etc. have been occurring for millennia of the Earth's violent past, way before Homo sapiens even evolved. Subtlety just isn't the way of zealots. So what should have been a dispassionate scientific debate has now degenerated into a Salem-type mass hysteria where everything is blamed on an imagined malignant entity, and those who beg to disagree with them are mocked and shamed as flat-earthers and practically burned at the stake by a liberal media paradoxically intolerant of opposing views. But there should be no mistake what their real intentions are. And for what Jeane Kirkpatrick labelled the Blame America First crowd, quote-unquote, there's added incentive to rally behind the global warming hysteria. And that is the clipping of America's industrial wings and degrade its status as an economic and military superpower because, by some revisionist and fallacious logic that has taken roots in liberal and academic circles, America is a force for evil that must be cut down to size. Simply put, global warming is no longer about science, but about an anti-capitalist, global wealth redistributionist agenda. But the global warmers lack the intellectual honesty to fess up to it. This is the very same crew who in 2008, and with palpable schadenfreude, all but prematurely announced the demise of free market capitalism, even as they put all the blame for that year's economic crisis on its supposed excesses. They conveniently forgot that it is precisely their socialist advocacies that caused government intervention in the housing market dating back to the late 1970s, which culminated in the 2008 crisis. Indeed, it took 40 years, but their populist chickens have come home to roost, all in the name of social justice, the politically correct buzzword that redistributionist, anti-free market and anti-capitalist ideologues use to mask their socialist ideology. All the blame should have gone not to free market capitalism, but its foes who pushed for that ill-fated government interventionism in the housing market to approve unqualified mortgage borrowers for the sake of social justice. Which brings me to a defence of capitalism. That's the end of Part 1. Part 2 will play next.